Awesome. All righty. So, welcome everyone. Where we're going to be kicking off is on page 30. And we are diving into the chapter More About Alcoholism. And what is really exciting about this chapter, by the way, the snoring is the dog. I did give the warning to the people ahead of time that I wasn't having toots. But just in case you can hear that, that's what that is. Uh, but where we're diving into and more about alcoholism is actually a really exciting chapter, especially in breaking down step one and what it means to have the illness as it is defined in our book and in our literature. And what we're really going to do is laser beam focus on the mental obsession. We're, of course, going to talk about the physical allergy, but we're going to dial right in on that mental obsession, which is going to allow us to get that focus on the hopelessness of our illness, which, by the way, if you're new and you're joining and you're like, the hopelessness is about as exciting as Annie's dog or the falling iguanas. Uh, maybe not iguanas. Well, maybe, I don't know. By the way, Annie was making fun. I'm not teasing her dog. I think her dog is delightful and handsome. She's not feeling like he's the most handsome fella. I think he's a lovely, lovely dog. Uh, but what's good about getting to that place of hopelessness is that it opens me up for me to receive the hope that is on offer. So I've often got to get to that place of hopelessness before these steps look appealing. So, more about alcoholism. Most of us have been unwilling to admit we're real alcoholics. Hey, was that my experience? Did you guys do that thing that I did when I came? And you guys wouldn't. You got, yeah, Annie. I hope you put the picture of your dog in the chat. Absolutely. um, but I would do this thing when I came to the rooms. And I'm sure that you lovely, wonderful people would never do this. But I would hear some weirdo like me natter on, and I'd think, "Whoa, I'm not as bad as her." Do you know what I mean? And somebody else would share, and I'd think, "Whoa, way worse than that guy." You know what I mean? I was looking for all the ways I didn't fit. I was looking for all the ways I wasn't like you. Do you know what I mean? I'm not a real alcoholic. Or when I was in some other rooms, I'm not a real addict. I was looking for all the ways that I was different. And if I have that experience where I'm not like, where I'm thinking, oh man, maybe I wasn't so bad, or oh man, maybe it's not so bad. Maybe I don't got to do all these things that Paige talks about. That is a common predicament that we find ourselves in. Most of us had been unwilling to admit we were real alcoholics. Most of us struggled with that idea of denial. And it goes on to say, no person likes to think he is bodily and mentally different from his fellows. What does it mean to be bodily different from my fellows? And it is what is different about me from non-alcoholics or me from non-addicts or me from whatever brings you to this all-inclusive study. That is what differentiates us. That is what distinguishes us. And that is how we can diagnose ourselves. Because that's what I got to do. I got to give myself a diagnosis. I got to find out if I have this thing. And so I am different from non-alcoholics. I am different from non-addicts. I'm different from normal folks. Now I'm different from normal folks in a whole whack of ways, like a whole whack of them. But for our purposes, two ways that I am different from non-alcoholics, non-addicts. And when the first is when it talks about being bodily different from our fellows. Now, if we're writing in our book today, now the cool kids are here. You don't have to write in your book to be a cool kid, but like if you write in your book, I'll give you a gold star. I don't know. I'm bribing you. I don't have time to bribe you. I'm busy, but I will. I'll bribe you. So if you want to write in your book, I'll give you a gold star. And you can make a little note when it says bodily that what we're talking about there is the physical allergy. We're talking about the allergy of the body. And so for alcoholics, for addicts, what that looks like is once I put that alcohol, once I put a drug, a mind-altering substance in my body, it's like a little switch that goes off and it tells me more. And the more that I drink or use, the more that I need to drink or use. And I can't control the amount that I take. Does that sound a little familiar? Anyone know what it's like to come to out of a blackout? You know what I mean? That's what we're talking about, you know? Once I start, I cannot control it. Now, for people who gamble, it's once they place that first bet, they take that first bet. For people that are overeaters, they take that first compulsive bite. For people that their thing is control, once they start to run the show and act from that place of control, that is what sets it off. And I need more. And it's never enough, or those that are compulsive shoppers, you do one Amazon purchase, I need another, I need another, I need another. I know some of you are like, girl, I wasn't planning to relate to all of this. Could you stop it? But that's what we're talking about. Do I have that thing that once I start, I cannot stop? That's what we're talking about. And then when it talks about being mentally different from our fellows, at this point, what we are singularly focusing on is the obsession of the mind. So when I have said, so you can write obsession of the mind, mental obsession, but when I have said, that's it, I am done. I do not want to do it again. Have I had that experience where a day, a week, a month, several months down the line, I get that thought that says, this time will be different. Nobody will ever know. I'll just go out for 3 drinks. I don't order a lot on Amazon, but like it's on sale. This time will be different. It's a good sale. Or, my problem is alcohol. But listen, guys, I promise I can smoke crack like a lady. Some of you are very aware that nothing in my life has ever happened in a ladylike fashion. I don't ladylike already. But sometimes it looks like that thought that I have that's on me all day. Take a drink, 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 until it erodes what little defense that I have. But sometimes it looks like I got a case of the suddenlies. I'm out there living my life. I got a crack pipe in my mouth, and I don't even know how it happened. Does that sound a little familiar? Because non-alcoholics, non-addicts, people that do not have this illness as it is outlined in this book, have not experienced this even a little bit. They don't know what that's like. They are the people, they'll say, now, some of you guys have heard this before, where it's like, no, people that don't have the allergy, do you know what they do? They say, honey, sweetie, because they haven't burned their relationship to the ground just yet. Sweetie, I'm going to go to the bar. I'm going to have 3 drinks and I'll be home by 9. And do you know what they do? They go to the bar, bear with me, and then they have 3 drinks and they're home by 9. And their pants are dry. And they got both their shoes. And they're with the person they're supposed to be with. Do you know what I mean? Wild. Can't relate. So that they don't know what it's like to have the allergy. And then people who do not have the obsession, it is just as baffling, it's just as wild. Do you know what they do? They say, I am not going to drink. And they can say it because maybe they've had a bit of a rough go. Maybe they can see they're drinking more than they would like to. Or maybe they're on a course of antibiotics. Do y'all know you're not supposed to drink on those? You know what I mean? If you give me something that's like, oh, you can't drink on that. One, I was like, why? Is it like do not mix with alcohol? Because that is a good old alcoholic enhancer. You know what I mean? Like, whoa, I'm gonna be blacking out with no pants. Whee! I mean, I would never. I'm a lady. Uh, uh, or is it like, because if it's antibiotics or alcohol, guess what? I'm not taking those antibiotics. You know what I'm saying? But they're the people that say, okay, I'm just not going to drink. And do you know what happens? They don't drink. Their desire to not take a drink, it has an effect. Wild. Just wild. Hey, that's not my experience. And so what I want to emphasize is that is the way in which we are different from our fellows. And that is why in step 1, we really, really dive into looking at the allergy and the obsession. We're going to talk a little about the spiritual malady. We're going to talk about that a lot more in step 2 and step 3. And as we get into step 4 a little bit, because human beings have the spiritual malady. We're not the only ones. I often like to joke, man, if you think alcoholics and addicts are the only people with the spiritual malady, You go to your local HOA or PTA meeting, you know what I mean? You will find some spiritually sick individuals that do not smoke crack, Probably. I'm just making that assumption. I think I assumed correctly on that case, though. All righty. So we are different from our fellows, and it is the allergy and the obsession that makes us different. And it says, therefore, it is not surprising that our drinking careers have been characterized by countless vain, and to be in vain is unsuccessful, by countless unsuccessful attempts to prove we could drink like other people. I just want to point out, if I'm making a career out of it, that's a good sign that I got this illness. You know what I'm saying? Oh, I was working. I was not even working 9 to 5. I think that was Dolly Parton. I was burning that midnight oil. Oh, I was climbing the corporate ladder, by which I mean I was face down in my own vomit, like a lady. But I was making a career out of that. But that if I look at my career, is my experience that I had countless attempts to prove that I could control it and that not work. Is my drinking and using history characterized by this inability to control? And then it says the idea that somehow, someday he will control and enjoy his drinking is the great obsession of every abnormal drinker. Now, when we talk about the great obsession, that is a synonym, and a synonym is a word that is a different word, but it means the exact same thing as another word. I don't feel like I explained that right. The great obsession means mental obsession, and we're going to see in this book, or in this chapter, all of these words that are not very literally the mental obsession, but are pointing to the mental obsession. We're going to see illusion, delusion. We're going to see peculiar mental twists. We're going to see strange mental blank spot. We're going to see insanity, and all of those. What they are pointing to is the obsession, the thought that I have before I take a drink, because that is the insanity of this illness. And that's really what we're diving into in this chapter. Now, that sentence, the idea that somehow, someday he will control and enjoy his drinking. If your experience is like mine, have you ever had a situation where you can only get like 1 or 2 drinks? Or you're like trying to keep a lid on it. You're at like I never was invited to work functions because you have to maintain a job long enough to have, a work function. But if you're like just trying to hold it together and you have 2 drinks and your knuckles are white and you're just kind of holding on and everyone's on your nerves because you just want to get home and drink like you want. You guys know that feeling? Yeah. That is controlling it. But that is not enjoying it. And when I'm enjoying it, oh, you know what I mean? There is a modicum of control. And see, is that my experience? And really, I couldn't imagine a worse fate than if you were to like sentence me to have 2 drinks a day for the rest of my life. And then I wouldn't, by the way, immediately I'm like, ooh, let me stockpile those. I already thought of a little loophole in the scenario that I created in my mind. But you know what I mean? You give me 2 drinks, and then for some reason I'm not able to get more. Man, that is a living nightmare. Because I've set off that thing inside me that's screaming for more. That thirst has begun, and I don't have a way to quench it. So if I'm controlling it, I'm not enjoying it. If I'm enjoying it, there's not control. And so it says the persistence of this illusion. Now, the illusion is, again, another synonym for the mental obsession. Because when I'm sober, I think, no, I'll control it and enjoy it. I'll have a great time. I'll only have 3 drinks. I won't wet my pants or anything, I'll be on my best behavior. But that isn't my experience in reality. But that is the lie. That is the lie that I believe. That is the lie that I go back to. So it says the persistence of this illusion, so mental obsession, and welcome, we're on page 30, first full paragraph, is astonishing. This is important. Many pursue it into the gates of insanity or death. Into. I'm not going to tell you what to do, because if you're like me, you tell me what to do, I'm going to do the opposite. Don't tell me what to do. I do what I want. Y'all don't know me. But if you feel like it, I would suggest underlining. Now, I wouldn't, it's an interesting thing. You might expect me to suggest that you underline insanity, or you would expect that I'm like, hey, put a star beside death. But I want you to underline into, or do what you want. Don't listen to me. I'm not your sponsor, unless I am, in which case, hey, you ask me for help. Uh, and the reason I want to emphasize into the gates of insanity or death, because I don't know about you. I caught Rob. He turned Paul's camera off because he fell asleep. It is just the sweetest thing when he does that, and he does that quietly so nobody notices. And I ruined it for everyone. Alrighty. But the reason I want to emphasize into the gates of insanity or death, because if you're like me, you're having that thought. Now I'm an up to. See, I always thought I was an up to sort of gal. Yeah, it'll get bad, but I'll turn it around before it gets real bad. Yeah, yeah, like I'll stop before I die. Yeah, I know it's not going well, but I won't ever let it get that bad. But the reality is, if I have the illness that is outlined in this book, if I have the allergy of the body and the obsession of the mind, I do not have the ability to choose whether I will be up to or into the gates of insanity or death. And what that means, if I do not have the ability to choose, if my illness is untreated, I will be into the gates of insanity or death. And that, you see, the problem is, it does not swing both ways. It does not swing both ways. The gate slams shut. If you guys remember, when we spoke about with Roland Hazard and Carl, and when he spoke about with Carl Jung, and he had that experience that Carl Jung told him, like, man, I've never seen anyone who is an alcoholic recover. He felt as though the gates of hell had closed on him with a clang. The gates of hell don't swing both ways. And if I have this illness, it is not a matter of if I go into the gates of insanity or death. It is a matter of when I go into the gates of insanity or death, if my illness is untreated. And that's why I emphasize into, because somebody like me, I will read that, I will hear that, we'll talk about that, we'll talk about the hopeless feature of the malady, and I will think, no, I'm young, no, I'm different, I'm not like you. But if I have those two characteristics, I am in the grip of a hopeless illness. And the train is going, and trains don't do U-turns real well. You know what I mean? Like, I am going into insanity or death. It goes on to say, we learned that we had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholics. This is the first step in recovery. And this is where step one is found in the book. So if you want, because normally I'll be like, it's what all the cool kids are doing. I've laid off the peer pressure. But this is step one. So it's like, where is step one in the book? It is right here. So we have to fully concede. And like, as Rob put in the chat, concede is to admit, to surrender, right? Concede to our innermost selves. And I want to emphasize, I'm not conceding to my sponsor. I'm not conceding to my home group. I'm not conceding to the courts or a spouse, because they're not the ones that need to be convinced. And if you're like me, they were convinced of my problems years before I was even open to looking at the idea that I might have a problem. You know what I mean? They're already convinced. I am the one that needs to be convinced. And so what does it mean to fully concede to my innermost self that I am an alcoholic? What does that mean? Because oftentimes in the rooms, we will hear, yeah, no, I got the step one is the only step. You've got to get 100% because, step one, it means I can never, ever safely drink again. But that is not really what step one is about. Step one is in part a concession that I can never, ever, ever safely drink or use or engage in what addictive behavior brings you to this all-inclusive study again. and I will, and I will. Because when I concede that I can never ever safely drink or use or whatever brings you to the study again, that means I am conceding that I have the physical allergy. I'm conceding that I cannot drink again because once I start, that allergy kicks off more often than, and I burn my life to the ground. So I'm conceding that. But if that's all I concede, I'm in trouble. I also need to concede that I have the mental obsession. And to have the obsession of the mind means that I will relapse. I will return to drinking. I will return to using. I will get drunk again. I will get high again. I will act out in that addictive behavior again. I will do it again. That is what the mental obsession means. Because I got no defense against that first drink. I got no defense against that first hit, that first hoot, that first high. I don't got anything that I can, no human power is sufficient. I will drink again. And that is what it means to fully concede. So step one is a concession that I'm going to relapse. Do you know what? And that might be a little different than what we've heard before, but that's what we're looking. That concession that I'm going to drink again. But we can also see how I can't stay sober on that. Sometimes it's like, you can't stay sober until you get step 100%. I can't stay sober when I'm going to drink again. That step one, though, does breed a sense of urgency. It lights a fire under me. When I see the hopelessness of my predicament, man, I'm going to do it again, despite the fact I know it will ruin my life. Man, I've got to grab a hold of these steps, this course of action that I don't want to grab a hold of. They're not appealing to anyone. I mean, steps, I love them, but I didn't when I got here. You know what I mean? I was not excited about this. And another way to look at this concession is another way to look at it is just as much as there will never be a time when I can ever safely drink or use any mind-altering substance ever again. There will also never be a time where I cannot be safely, where I cannot be fully engaged in this program of recovery ever again. Does that make sense? That idea that just as I can never ever safely drink or use again, I can never ever safely not be living this 12-step way of life. Because if I see the reality that the only solution for somebody like me is a spiritual awakening, and I can't even stay stagnant on that, you know what I mean? It'll go stale like bread, and I can't make spiritual croutons. That was one of my weirder metaphors. I mean, maybe we'll see if we can make spirit. Now I can't make it's gotta be fresh. You know what I mean? No spiritual croutons. I know. I do not know why I'm like this. I should, because I write a lot of inventory. It behooves me. I'm not wearing that sweater today. So it says, so that is the first step of recovery. I've got to see that I got to have fresh spiritual bread. I can't have none of those croutons. That I have to be fully engaged in this 12-step way of life. That's the natural conclusion when I see step one, that I will relapse. I will do it again. And it says the delusion. Now, delusion is another synonym for the mental obsession. The delusion that we are like other people, or presently maybe, has to be smashed. And I'll just, sometimes when I have a little bit of creativity and a little bit of, I don't know what it is, I make these things. And so I got this little like delusion smashers as like, cause I got it like, cause I have a visual mind. So if you got a visual mind, like, yeah, check it, delusion smashers. I've got to smash that delusion that I might be like other people. And what does it mean to be like other people? Other people who are average, non-alcoholics, non-addicts, they do not have the allergy and they do not have the obsession. That is the delusion that I need to smash, that I either don't have the allergy or I don't have the mental obsession. I've got to smash that delusion. And that is what this chapter is here to do. We are trying to smash that delusion, baby. So delusion smashers. Alrighty. And are you like, I do have more weird things like that, especially in this chapter. This chapter, I've got weird diagrams. So stay tuned. It's what happens. Alrighty. So it says, we alcoholics are men and women who have lost the ability to control our drinking. Now, oftentimes in this book, when we talk about the word control, and Rob pointed out 5 times, that we're talking about the allergy. So that no alcoholic has the ability to recover control. So if I've got the allergy, I got the allergy. Listen, I don't have a way to drink or smoke crack like a lady. I have tried. To be fair, not that hard to drink like a lady because I think I knew that was out of bounds. But I tried real hard to smoke crack with impunity. It didn't work. Ta-da! Here we are. So we know that no real alcoholic ever recovers control. So if I got it, I got it. I don't have the way to moderate it in the future. Now, here is the book meeting us where we're at, because you hear that and you're like, you know what? There was that time I went on a relapse and I was able to go out for 3 drinks. And the next day I went out for 3 drinks. And the next, and then it was like 3 weeks went by and I was hammered, but this is the book meeting us where we're at and taking us where we need to go. And I always want to point out when the book does this, because for me, I mean, this is who I'm called to be. Like, if the book can show up with love and grace and understanding, aren't I called to show up with love and grace and understanding, but also with that honesty to take us where we need to go? So it says, all of us felt at times we were regaining control. So we've all had this moment like, hey, no, I got it this time. I found the perfect concoction. Some of you guys who have mixed substances, you guys know what I'm talking about. We were making cocktails, and I don't mean those fancy drinks, because again, that requires a level of functionality that eludes me. I'm talking about, oh, I'm gonna take some of that to run me down. I'll take some of that to get me up. You know what I mean? Like, oh, a cocktail. Uh, but but such intervals, usually brief, were inevitably, which means pretty well always, followed by still less control, which led in time to pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. Is that my experience? By the way, when it says pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization, I'm like, oh, my old friend, I know you well. We're homies. We go back we go way back. But is that my experience? That I might have had these brief periods of control where maybe I was able to go out and have 3 drinks, or maybe I was just smoking it up a little bit. Maybe I had a bit of control, and it lasted for a short period of time, only to get railroaded by that allergy. And it got worse and worse and worse. Is that my experience? So when I laser beam out, is that my experience? And it says, we are convinced to a man. Now, the turn of phrase to a man means without exception. So we're convinced without exception that alcoholics of our type are in the grip of a progressive illness. Over any considerable period, we get worse, never better. Now, I don't know why I'm on this tangent, but the word progress, in its original use, it didn't mean to progress forward like how we use it today. It just meant to move. Progress meant movement. And in our case, was I progressing in a very steep downward sort of spiral? You know what I mean? And if I look at my life, is my experience that it got worse? Because there's times, man, I've worked with people who are like, Paige, I think there's a time at 9 years old, I was a moderate drinker at 9, and then we determined probably hit hard drinking at around 15, and then crossed into alcoholic shortly after. You know what I mean? Is my experience, though, if I look at the broad picture of my drinking career, that it got worse? The consequences started piling up. The periods of sobriety maybe got shorter and shorter. The binges and the sprees got longer and longer. Is that my experience? Now, I'll throw something else out. That's very specifically what the book is talking about. But I'm going to throw something out from my experience. What I found is that the illness seems to be progressive whether I'm drinking or not. If you've ever seen somebody who stayed, so actually, there was a gentleman I knew, and he had probably similar to the amount of sobriety time I have now, like around 15 years. He was a good member, active, doing this, and then he had a relapse. And in his relapse, he became that homeless gentleman that was yelling in meetings, that was being disruptive in meetings. And this was a guy that, like, for a time I was wondering if I should ask him to be my sponsor. And that's how bad it gets. Now he's been sober a couple of years again, like he's been sober, I think maybe 4 or 5 years, which is miraculous. But if we've been around this thing a while, we see that progression in others. And I'll just share with you my experience. My pain tolerance has gotten worse. Like when I got here, I had a high spiritual pain tolerance. Oh, I could be complacent for a while. Oh, that fourth step, let me just sit on that right there. Oh, don't need to pick up no pen, no paper. Oh, yeah, I did a fifth step forever ago. And then, yeah, we're good. You know what I mean? I was complacent and I could get away with that. But you see, the more that I've done in this work, the less I got of the pain tolerance, and the less that I can live in a resentment or in fear. And I promise you, there is a gift in not having a high pain tolerance. Sometimes people who are chronic relapsers are just ones that don't have that high pain tolerance to live in the misery of their untreated illness. That's a gift, because if it's bad, I got to do something about it. I don't think there's anything worse than that, like low grade, I'm sober and I'm having just a great time. You know, like it's not bad enough for them to write some inventory, but it's bad enough that I don't want to hang out with you, no judgment. That sort of low, it's, you know what, I it's almost a blessing when I'm in a lot of pain, because I can't, I have to get out of it. And the only way I know how to get out of it is to work these 12 steps as a way of life, like my life depends on it, because it does. So it says we are like men who have lost their legs. Now, this joke really only lands when I'm in an in-person meeting. But when we read that at an in-person meeting, I'll go, oh, what? They don't grow back? I'm in a wheelchair, which is why that is funny. Actually, that's subjective, because I'll also let you know the in-person people are sick of that. They don't like that joke anymore. They're like, Paige, that's not funny. And I still do it. What? So we're convinced, it says we're like men who have lost their legs, they never grow new ones. And I know we've all had that, like, once I'm a pickle, I can never become a cucumber again. Oh, I have a bunch of like pickle designs that I made. I don't have time to grab them, but that is the level of maturity I have. And we laugh and laugh and laugh. But what that means is that if I have this illness, I don't have a way to ever go back to not having this illness. Even if I don't want it, even if I don't like it, even if I get a good job or a good relationship or a good family, if I have this illness, I have this illness. And this illness demands treatment. It demands treatment. And I'm either going to treat it with the spiritual awakening as the result of the 12 steps, or I'm going to treat it with a drink, or for somebody like me, a hoot of crack, or I'm going to pop some pills, or I'm going to kill myself. Those are the only options that I have to treat this illness. So it says they never grow new ones. Neither does the, oh, actually, hold on. Sorry. I'm not always great. Yeah. Scott's friend has my sense of humor with the prosthesis and like, yeah, yeah, holds it up when they read that. And I would just, that's my thing. I'm like, I pretend like I've never heard it before. Yeah, I don't, because I don't got prosthetics to wave around. But I'm just, what? They don't grow back. I just act like this is the first time I've ever heard it. And again, they are over it and don't find me funny, which is their loss. Alrighty. So it says, neither does there appear to be any kind of treatment which will make alcoholics of our kind like other men. So oftentimes we sort of joke about like, hey, if there was a cure for alcoholism or a cure for addiction, if we could just take a pill. Well, I'd probably take 6. You know what I mean? I probably, just to see how that would go. but there is also a thing that like once I took that, like, wouldn't I just want to go try to get drunk to see, you know what I mean? I still want to like tie one on, you know? Anyway, that's me. So we have tried, and actually, what I will point out is, well, we'll get, sorry, out of order. My brain will do that. So we have tried every imaginable remedy. Is that my experience? You see, I did not try everything, but my experience is everything that I tried failed. And if you're hanging out with me on a Monday night, Tuesday morning, hey Scott, uh, that probably you've tried other things. I always like to joke. I am the yeah. I don't want to be like other men. Yeah, the life that honestly, the truth is, if you were to offer me a pill that could possibly cure my illness of alcoholism or addiction, I wouldn't take it. I genuinely wouldn't take it. I genuinely today would not be interested in it. Because the life that I have is the result of God and the 12 steps, man, I wouldn't give that up for anything. So I have no interest, no interest. But I love, yeah, the jokes about like, so if there was a pill for addiction, what would happen if I crushed it up and snorted it? You know, like, I mean, we would never. Yeah, we would. Yeah, we would. All right. So it talks about we've tried every imaginable remedy. Have I tried remedies? Have I tried detox, treatment centers, counselors, psychologists, psychiatrists? Have I tried going to the gym? Have I tried other things? Now I did not try everything, but everything that I tried failed. And is this my experience? In some instances, there's been brief recovery, followed always by a still worse relapse. Has that been my experience? And it says physicians who are familiar with alcoholism agree that there is no such thing as making a normal drinker out of an alcoholic. Science may one day accomplish this, but it hasn't done so yet. And what is interesting about that is like there would be money in finding a pill for us. There would be a lot of money in it because there's a lot of us. But the fact that science hasn't been able to, and I'm sure there's been money invested into that research, is interesting. That there is not a solution for this illness other than God, other than a spiritual awakening. And I will point out as when we get to we agnostics, we're going to talk about maybe one day they will get man on the moon by means of a rocket. And we've had rovers on Mars that were up there so long that they died. And I felt sad for the robots. I was very concerned about the iguanas. Rob was telling me they won't make it if they fall out of the tree, and I was having a big sad about that. But we've had rovers on Mars so long they died. They died, and again, big sad. But we still don't have a cure for this illness. Which two things I'll point out. One, first of all, is that like man, I think it tells us the iguanas or the rovers? Wait, we got taste like chicken in the chat. Well, yeah, you get your freshly frozen iguanas. This has gone off the rails, launched. Uh, oh, you do what you want with your iguanas on your time. Uh, all right, but I will point out that it does imply heavily that a solution for people like us is more complicated than interstellar space travel. Just going to throw that there, you know. And we got a solution for it that is cheaper. We don't have to source any NASA parts to get us rocketed into the fourth dimension. Y'all just got to start writing some inventory. That's it. And some of us are like, no. How much do those O-rings cost? I'll buy some NASA parts, you know. All right. So it says, despite all we can say, many who are real alcoholics, and again, sometimes we hear real alcoholic or people say, I'm so-and-so, I'm a real alcoholic. What does that mean? To have the allergy and the obsession, that is all that means. If I've got the allergy and the obsession, that's an alcoholic. Does not matter how old I am, does not matter. So if I got the allergy and obsession with other substances, that's what it means to be an addict. If I got the allergy and the obsession with gambling, that's what it means to be a compulsive gambler, to have this illness is gambling. You know, what are we talking about? So those of us who are that real deal Often don't think we are. So it doesn't matter about how young I am, how old I am, doesn't matter the consequences, doesn't matter how much money I have in the bank. It matters the obsession and the allergy. But based solely on that, many who are real alcoholics are not going to believe that they are in that class. How often we had glaring, the flags were red, the writing was on the wall, I'm in trouble, and I'm like, I got my blinders, can't see it. It's fine. It's fine, you know? And it says, by every form of self-deception and experimentation, and that is a beautiful description of the mental obsession. No, no, no. I'm just like lying to myself. No, it's not that bad. I'm just in my 20s. Oh, it's not, and experimenting. You know, my problem is when I drink tequila, but I'm going to switch to gin. It'll be fine. You know, the experimentation. You know what my problem is? My problem is alcohol, but I can switch to weed, or my problem is weed, but I can switch to alcohol, or my problem is crack, and I can just do that. I cannot. And so it says, by every form of self-deception and experimentation, they will try to prove themselves exceptions to the rule. What is the rule? The rule is if I have the allergy and I have the obsession, I am in a hopeless condition. I have this illness. And it's like, no, 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 I might have the allergy and the obsession, but no, 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 I don't, I'm not really that bad. So we're trying to prove that we don't have this illness. Therefore, non-alcoholic. If anyone who is showing the inability to control his drinking and lack of control, again, we're pointing to the allergy, that inability to control it, can do the right about face like a 180 turn and drink like a gentleman, our hats are off to him. If you're wondering, never have I been able to do that. You know, that eludes me, that gentlemanly, refined sensibility sort of drinking. But the truth is, we do have to let people have the dignity of their own experience. And we can ask ourselves this next line, heaven knows we have tried hard enough and long enough to drink like other people. Did I try for a long time? And a long time is subjective, because if you're like me and you got sober young, you know how long it was to be in that sort of state, to have to get sober young. You know what I mean? Heaven knows we've tried hard enough and long enough to drink like other people. Did I try to control it? Did I try everything I could to not have to give up the drinking or the substance or the addictive behavior that brings you here? Because I didn't want to give it up. And the reason I didn't want to give it up is because it gave me that sense of ease and comfort that I needed. Man, it was my solution for life. I can't give that up. And it says, here are the methods we tried. Fun fact, this is the longest sentence in the big book. There's not a period to the end. It's not my favorite sentence. My favorite sentence is the sentence that goes, nonsense. Probably the shortest sentence in the book, but that one's my favorite. But this one's fun. So here are some of the methods we tried. So let's ask ourselves, did I try these methods? Drinking beer only. Anyone ever tried just drinking beer, or just trying to, yeah? Limiting the number of drinks. Anyone ever? I'm just going to stick to 3. Just going to have a 6-pack. Just a 6-pack. Or, listen, I'm only going to spend $100. Whatever it is. Did we try to limit it? Never drinking alone. No, I'm going to be social. I didn't like drinking with other people. That was just a recipe for disaster. And you know what happens when you're using drugs with other people? They expect you to share. You know what I mean? Rude. Sometimes people are like, what's your drug of choice? I'm like, yours. That's my drug of choice. Yours. What do you got? I'll take it. What are you drinking? Yours. Leave that unattended. Mine, thank you. I mean, I would never. Actually, well, because as we go through this very long sentence, what we're going to ask ourselves at first is, do we have experience with the physical allergy? Because if limiting the number of drinks didn't work, if trying drinking beer only didn't work, if never drinking alone didn't work. Now let's keep it going. Never drinking in the morning. Anyone here? No hair of the dog. I'm not going to drink in the morning. Only to do that. Yeah. Drinking only at home. Not me. I was homeless. No, I did try that too, though. Never having it in the house. Yeah. Never drinking during business hours. Not gonna, yeah, doesn't apply to me. I don't have a job. That was some of the places I ended up. That doesn't make me alcoholic, but that inability to control, that's what we're looking at here. Did I have the ability to control it? And I would switch out these things and still not have control. Drinking only at parties. Party of one. Party of one. Switching from scotch to brandy. So did I switch the drinks that I was drinking or the substances that I was using or addictions as a whole? Drinking only natural wines. It's got the antioxidants. How could it hurt me? I mean, it's basically a vegetable because grapes are fruit. And so basically, I'm just taking care of my health. I'm being heart smart or whatever, you know? Um, and then it says, then it gets into agreeing to resign if ever drunk on the job. So we begin to transition into the swearing off. Now I'll throw something out in addition to add, because at the end it's going to we can increase the list ad infinitum. So if you're not sure if you have the physical allergy, what we can ask is for those that are alcoholics, have you ever played the game bottom beer roulette? And if you do not know off the title alone what bottom beer roulette is, let me tell you. So that is where the other people at the party or the place that you're drinking at party have gone to bed, or they've coupled up to make their own different life decisions, or they've gone home, or they've done whatever, and you're going around and you're finishing off everyone's bottom beers, trying to avoid the one with the cigarette butts. Anyone here ever played bottom beer roulette? Yeah, you know what I'm talking. Here's what I will say. You don't have to have played bottom beer roulette to be an alcoholic, but only alcoholics are playing that game. And listen, if you're not sure, oh, Paige, I know I've played that game. I don't know if I have the allergy, though. What I will throw out is if you finish the one with the cigarettes, girl, there is no doubt you got the allergy. I didn't finish it. I didn't finish the one with the cigarettes. Yeah, some of you are like, I didn't need that flashback page. I didn't need to remember that. It's yeah, yeah, it's like Minesweep. Yeah, I love that. I love that we got different names for it. Yeah, Minesweeper. Yeah, put the little flag on it. It's got the cigarettes, right? And now is where we transition into, I know I'm getting all the gross, like, what emojis? We don't like it. Yeah. Anyone ever play bottom beer roulette? Find the one with the beer can and then go play bottom beer roulette again? Yeah. Yeah. Ooh. Oh, I never found that one. Ooh. Yeah, I know we're all like, ooh. Alrighty. So now is where we're switching to trying to swear off, right? So agreeing to resign if ever drunk on the job. And then it says taking a trip, not taking a trip. Going to Mexico, not going to Mexico, going on these things. I'll just get away from it. Or, oh man, if I go there, I'm going to get in trouble. And it then talks about anyone ever tries swearing off forever with and without solemn oath. I promise. Taking more physical exercise. Some of you guys know from my experience, there was a time in my life I had abs, not recently. This is a long time ago, but there was a time in my life I had abs. Not once in my life did they lead to abstinence. I was ripped. I genuinely was ripped. I genuinely was like jacked, but I kept getting ripped. I did not work. Anyone ever try going to the gym? That says reading inspirational books. Did we try to read these motivational, inspirational books? And if you're like, oh, I wasn't doing reading. Okay, did we try inspirational TikToks? Did we try that? They didn't have that when I was trying to get sober. Maybe that would have worked. It wasn't going to work. Did we try going to health farm sanitariums, rehabs, detoxes, treatment centers, retreats? Did we try, going to some of these places, accepting voluntary commitment to asylums? So did we end up in locked institutions, jails, psych wards, those sorts of places, emergency rooms? Did I try that and did that not work? We could increase the list ad infinitum. So we could keep going with different things that we tried to use power over the physical allergy and power over the mental obsession. And if I have tried, and if you're hanging out with me, so glad you are, I love you the most. If you have tried those things and they not work, to control, to stay sober, to drink like a lady, to not take that first drink, and it not work, that is a sign that we have this illness. So it says, we do, so now this is, we get into one of two experiments. So if you're like, girl, I want to listen to you, I want to read the book, I want to mirror my experience with what is outlined in the book, I want to do that. I want to do an experiment. We got you. We got an experiment for you to run for those who are scientifically minded. And I used to joke, I'm not an alcoholic. I'm just really into time travel. You know, you take a drink on a Tuesday, you wake up on a Friday somewhere else, different city. Where are my shoes? Where's my pants? What happened? Like a lady, pinkies up. That is what we call not being aware of what's going on in my life. So it says, we do not like to pronounce any individuals alcoholic. And I will point out, it says, we don't like to. Doesn't mean we're not good at it. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, we spot each other from a mile away. And actually, if you're an addict, you use drugs and you move to a completely different town, anyone here else done the geographic? Yeah, I moved down to Lethbridge. It's just windier, just as many crackheads. I would know because I was there. But the idea, you go to a completely new place and you're like, I'm not going to use drugs. And I'm pointing out drugs because people would think, oh, I got no connections. I got nobody. There's nobody I know in this brand new place. Where do we go? We go to that sketchy bar with the sketchy people. We can spot each other from a mile away. We don't like to, doesn't mean we're not good at it. So we're not going to make a pronouncement. So it says, but you can quickly diagnose yourself. Step over to the nearest bar room and try some controlled drinking. Try to drink and stop abruptly. And so as Rob put in the chat, there's the Marty Man test. And so it's stick to a certain number of drinks. So let's between 1 and 3. So here's what this looks like. I'm going to go to the bar and I'm going to have 3 drinks. And I want you to know, stop abruptly means for a 24-hour period. That does not mean to break the seal and go pee. That's not an abrupt stop. It also does not mean to go to the bathroom and do some cocaine. That is also not an abrupt stop. But an abrupt stop is to try to stop for a 24-hour period. 3 drinks, stop for a 24-hour period. And it says, try it more than once. So try it again and again and again. And I have worked with, I can't even tell you how many people I've worked with, taken through this book, taken through the steps. And every single time I'm like, hey, you can go, you can do it if you want. And every single time they're like, I don't need to do that. I don't need to do that. Because they know from their own experience, beyond a shadow of a doubt, what will happen. And what are we testing? We are testing to see, do I have the physical allergy? That's what we're testing. So that's a test to see if I'm not convinced based on all these descriptions, based on the things we're throwing out. I don't know if I have the physical allergy. We can go find out. But here's the most interesting thing. Every single person I have sat down with and taken them through, I said, no. I don't need to do that. I know exactly what will happen. But not every person that I have worked with has stayed sober. And I point that out to point out the power of the obsession of the mind. Sitting with me, they can say, I know I can never drink, or if I'm working with them out of CA or a different fellowship, I know I can never safely use. I know I can never do it again. And they do it again. And we're going to see, no worries, thank you for coming. We're going to see the other test to test whether or not we have the mental obsession. But the fact that in this moment, nobody here is like, that sounds like a great idea. I think I'll give that a go. But if we don't treat this illness, a day, a week, several months down the line, we'll get a thought that says, we can do that. We can do that. Yeah, no, I can have 3 drinks, no problem. Because even though in this moment, it's like, girl, no. And it says, it will not take long That's true. It gets burnt to the ground pretty quickly if you're like me. It will not take long for you to decide if you're honest with yourself about it. It may be worth a bad case of jitters if you get full knowledge of our condition. So if we can see the truth that I have this allergy. But we don't have to do that test. If you're here today and you're like, girl, I don't want to do it. You don't have to. If your experience lines up with what we already been talking about, wonderful. You got the allergy. And we're at the hour. So what that means is I will stop the recording and we can wrap it up with the serenity period. We'll pick up where we left off next week.